Let's build a task tracker app and gamify it. So this morning, someone posted on Reddit, they said they're a newbie and they're like, hey, I need to build an app that does blah, blah, blah. And they were asking for help. And I saw the requirements and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. So what we're going to do is we're just going to build this app, right? Like I have not planned, I have not practiced. You're going to see in just a second, like 51 minutes ago, they posted about this and I was like, all right, we're just going to do this thing. So that's what we're about to do. Build this app from beginning to end and make it all available. Okay, so over here on the Reddit PowerApps, right? You can see that the person kind of laid out what they want to build. I'm not going to read it to you because who wants to listen to me read people's other stuff? I don't know, right? We're not going to do that. But down here, you're going to see that I kind of took what he or she wrote and I'm like, all right, app has a list of tasks. Anyone, anytime can come to the app and say they did a task. So in this case, task 3. When they submit task 3, we want to record that they did it, right? So that they did it. A date. We're going to do a comment as well because he added that, or he or she, sorry, that person added it in the last one. Then we're also going to, right, so we're going to capture they did the task, but then we're going to have a separate table where we're going to gamify it, right? So we're going to be, oh, Buddy did this task, and we're going to find Buddy's point total, and then we're going to increment it. So that way we can have a scoreboard. And so for each task, we're going to let them assign points, and, you know, I don't know, we're just going to play and see what we built here. But like I said, I haven't practiced. You can see this was 51 minutes ago. And really, I spent the last 51 minutes not working on this at all, but brushing my hair, getting all pretty for you guys. So anyway, so we'll switch over to PowerApps. And so because I want to make this app available for download over on the training site, what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to solutions, and we're going to do this as a new solution. We'll give it a name, Reddit Gamify app. Sure. We'll choose a publisher, the PowerApps 911, of course. And then we'll say create down there underneath my face. All right, I have 30 seconds or so. We got this in here. And so what we're gonna do is we wanna say, hey, I wanna do a new app and we're gonna do a Canvas app. And then we're gonna call this Reddit Gamify, and we're gonna make that a tablet and we're gonna say create. Now keep in mind, right, we're gonna do this whole thing in a Dataverse solution. You could do this in SharePoint or any other data source you wanted, but I'm just gonna make this nice little bundle here by putting it all in Dataverse for us. So we're gonna land on the home screen. And so we're gonna make this app is not gonna be pretty. You know, we've spent a lot of time making apps pretty before. We just wanna get into the core functionality. So the first thing that I think about we need here is we're going to need a list of tasks to accomplish. Now, in this particular case, we're not going to make this app self-maintaining, right? The last app I built, which I'll put a link up there, we talked about how to make, you know, that a list and reference it, but we're just going to hard code the questions in here. And so we're going to do that with a collection. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the app option, and then we're going to go to formulas, right? We're going to create a named formula to do this. So we're going to do something like NF task, right? And we're going to say equals. And then, so what do we want it to equal? We want it to be a table, right? So we'll just use the table function. And then what are we going to have here? We're going to have to then define each record. And so we're going to have task name, and then we'll make the first task feed the dog, right? We'll go with the Buddy theme, feed the dog. And then we're going to have also task points. And then we're going to set the task points. And I think feeding the dog is worth, I don't know, 2 points, right? So notice feed the dog, because it's text, needs to be in double quotes. Task points, because it's a number, we want to use it as a number, it would not be. So that'd be our first task. We'll build like 3 tasks, right? So we'll copy, we'll do a comma here, we'll do a paste. And then for this one, we'll say walk the dog. And that one's a little bit tougher. So we'll give you 3 points for that one, and then we'll comma and then paste that in. And for this one, we'll say swim with the dog, right? So Buddy loves to swim, if you did not know that. And that one is a pain. So we'll do 5. And then we will close that, and then we'll put a semicolon at the end. And if I did all that right, we should now have a collection, right? Like this is a collection. I just called it NF because anytime I use name formula, I put NF in front of it. And it is that table. And so the idea is then we could say, all right, if I went down here now and did a drop down, so let's go insert a drop down. And so for the items for the drop down, we can now say NF task. And if we hit the Alt key, look, we got feed the dog, walk the dog, swim the dog. Swim the dog, swim with the dog, whatever, right? And I'm also going to change this drop down and say, hey, I want your default to be nothing, right? Because I want them to choose their own task. And then we're going to say allow empty selection is true. Now, right, reminder. So if you had a SharePoint list or Dataverse table, SQL table, whatever that had the list of tasks, you could have used that, right? You'd add that as a data source over here, and then you'd pull that in. And then you could even build a screen for maintaining that list. So we're just trying to make this work as fast and as efficient as possible to teach the concepts. So we're not going to do that right now. But now we know, like if you select walk the dog, right? And if we throw a label on here just so we can see it, what do we have? We would be able to say dropdown1.selected, and then we do a dot here, and then there's the two things. And so task name should be walk the dog. It is. And then if we change that from task name to dot again, task points, we would see the 3, right? And so if we change that to feed the dog, we got 2. If we deselect, we got none. That's where the person can choose the task. That was one of our requirements. Let them choose what task they completed. And we're going to need that information in a second. So let's just walk the dog so we can see the points here. Now, they also ask for the ability to have some type of comment. So let's just insert ourselves a label and we will say comment. I think they want to be able to put like customer name or something like that in there so they kind of knew what task they had done. And then here we're going to then do a text input. And because comments can sometimes be bigger, well, let's get rid of the default. But because comments can be bigger, what we might do is go over here to the right and write text format is correct. But if you go down here, you see this where it says mode, we're going to change this to multi-line. That way it can have it'll scroll down instead of scrolling sideways if they just choose to enter a lot. Right, would probably resize this. The other thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to store these comments. And so let's say that the most, like we don't want to read a book, right? So we're going to say the maximum length here is 500. That will stop them from doing more than 500 characters in the text input. So that's really, in this first go, what we're trying to collect from the people. So, you know what we probably should really do right now is we probably should hit save. So let's hit the save button, right? By hitting the save button, we won't lose our app. If I accidentally refresh or walk away, it becomes lunchtime. My little tummy gets hungry. Okay, so now it's saved. Now we need to create a data source, right? So we're gonna go over here to data, and we're gonna say add data, and we're gonna say create a new table. And so what do we need in this table, right? We get the new designer. Ooh, so fancy. But what I think we're gonna do is we're just going to start from blank, right? Yeah, let's start from blank. So we'll go over here. So we're gonna call this table, we will call this, Reddit task. Right, and I put things like Reddit in front of everything so I know what it is later, right? Just, you guys didn't know I've built several thousand apps, almost a video 500, it's crazy. So I try to kind of keep myself organized. All right, so the first column here, what we're gonna do is we'll edit the column and we'll change its name from new column to Reddit task. There you go. How many times can I say the word Reddit today? Who knows, okay? Single line, boom, 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 update, great. Okay, so this is where we're gonna record their activity, right? So we got the Reddit task, and then we need to add another column. So say new column. And so for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to say task comments. Now with this, we want to be careful, right? So if we choose single line of text, it would be there, but it would only be up to 100 characters, right? That would give us the option right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do text, and then we're going to go down here to multi-line to text, plain text, because the default for that one is bigger. Technically, we could go in and change a single line of text from 100 characters to 500, but we're just going to use multi-lines of text. So we don't have to worry about that right now. And if you're in SharePoint, right, a single line of text is like 255 characters by default and like 65,000-ish if you do multi-line there. So we're going to save, right? We got task, or we got the task and the task comments. Now we need to track things like created by and, so like who did it, right? So who's logging this activity and then when they did that. But the good news is that we can just take advantage of the built-in columns, right? There's a created by and a created column built into both SharePoint and Dataverse that we can just leverage. Or if you really wanted to have your own one, so we could then go say, hey, new column. I mean, we don't want the whole time, we just want to know what date. And because some people forget to log it on the right day, we might want to make that a little bit manipulable. So we'll say task date, right? I'm changing my own requirements on the fly. And then here what we're going to do is we're going to do a date only, and we'll say save. Boom, boom, boom. That looks good to me. Now, what we want to do is then we're just going to say save and exit. All right, and this is saying, hey, when you do this, it'll add all this to where we just were, which is a really nice feature of this whole interface. Right? There's a lot of cool stuff in this new interface we're not going to go through today. I need to make a video on that, but for today, we're just going to power through it because you could be doing this, like I said, in SharePoint or somewhere else. All right, after a few seconds, it's shown up over here. All right, so we got the date, we got all the points, we got the comment. So we also are going to need another table. I guess I could have made it while we were over there, but that's going to be to track Buddy's work, right? So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to say how many points does Buddy get. We want to be able to kind of, add those up as we go. Now there's two different ways I guess you could think about that. One is that we could have said, we're just going to take that task list. We could have added a points column there, and then we could just kind of do some functions to add up each one. Like, I think we could have made that work. But what I find in these gamify scenarios is it's easier a lot of times just to have your own table for doing that. And it also adds a little complexity that we can play with. So we're going to build a table for capturing that activity. So we'll say add data again. We'll create another new table. And once again, there's no reason I didn't do this in the last time. It's just more of a, Shane didn't think of it. All right, I'm going to say start from blank. And so for this one, we're going to say Reddit points. So what we're looking for here is all we really want to track is the person and then the number of points they got, right? I think, and maybe the date they got the points as well. Yeah, we'll do that as well. Okay. So over here, I think we're going to do this as the person's email. I don't know. I'm a little torn on how to do this, right? There's a bunch of different ways we could go after this, but we're just going to say person's email. Yeah, very technical, right? So if you think about this whole idea, we could make this a lookup, some type of relationship. We could have a column for tracking their system ID if it was a larger scenario. There's a lot of different ways you could go after this, but we're trying to make this just quick and dirty, teach the concepts. So we're going to make this simple. We're just going to add their email addresses and use that as our primary key here, right? So we've got our email, and then we're going to add another column for points earned. We're going to make that one a number. And for the number, we're going to just make this whole numbers, right? Because we're just doing 1, 2, 3s, integers. So we're going to save that. So email, points earned, and then we'll do one more for points date. And we'll make that one a date and time. No, you know what? Actually, we're not going to use this column, right? Because all I'm going to do is keep a running total over here. I'm not trying to keep the details. The details are somewhere else. No, this is not what I want. All I want is an email and their points earned, but we're going to change that to call that edit column total points earned, okay? Because that's all it's going to be. And you're going to see how we're going to do this in just a second, right? So there you go. Super simple. Save and exit again. So now we need to save this stuff. Now, so speaking of that date, right, we need to first insert ourselves a date picker here. And so we're going to throw a date picker down here. And then now what we want to do is we need a button to save, right? So we're going to throw a button on and we're going to say, submit task. So with this button, we want to do is we want to do a patch. Okay, so patch is another way, if you've only ever used forms before, patch is just a way to take individual controls and save them the same way that a form, when you say submit form, it just automatically takes that data and pushes it up there. If you're not familiar with patch, there's a video up there, but we're not going to teach too much about it as we go. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is just capture they did this task, right? So we're going to choose the Reddit task table as a table we want to update. And then we're going to do default Reddit task. And that's just a way of saying, make me a new record. So every time they come here, they're just submitting a new task activity. This app doesn't have any type of editing ability in it. So then now we're going to do a little record symbol here. And so the first thing we want to do is get the task that they did, right? And so we called that one Reddit task. So we're just going to say Reddit task. And then what do we want to patch in there? We want to patch in our dropdown. So dropdown one, selected dot task name. Now, really what we should probably be doing is renaming these controls. So let's just close our patch real quick. And we'll go back over here and just change this dropdown to be DD task. And then our text input here to be INP comments. And then our date picker is going to be DP task date. Okay, by renaming those, it's going to make this a lot easier to write, right? So Reddit task is drop down, selected task name. And now I realize I made a boo-boo. And so I went and added another field. So if we go over here to data and we go to Reddit task and say edit data, I decided I want to track the task points in here because this table is kind of all the activities. I'll also be able to add up, do other reporting on this later. And so I added this as a whole number field when I thought I was recording and I wasn't recording. Oops. And now I can't delete it. So anyway, we're just going to understand that task points got added when you weren't looking. My bad. I told you I didn't practice this at all. But now we can go up here and now we've got task points. And then that's just going to be what? Drop down task dot selected dot task points. And because we made that a number column in our collection, it will pass to a number. So we don't have to wrap value around that or anything. Okay. So there's two. Then what do we have? We also have the date, right? So task date, and then that's going to be our DP task date. Oh, easy for me to say. Select a date. And then finally we have our task comments, and that's going to be input comments.text. Okay. See, that's the beauty of renaming those controls. Made that super easy to write without having to look. And boom, just like that. So if we patch that, that is going to write to the task list that they did it, right? This is them saying they did their thing, okay? That's the easy part. Now, a little bit harder, and we're going to do this all in the same button press, is we want to also patch their points, okay? And so what we're going to do here is we're going to do a with, okay? So with is a way to kind of create a temporary variable. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do this, and then we're going to say X points, and then we're going to do a lookup, okay? The reason we're going to do a lookup here is because we want to figure out if they've ever recorded points before or not, right? So we're going to do a lookup to Reddit points, and we're going to do that where person email, right? Remember that's what we named that column, kind of a weirdo, equals user : email. Now, once again, there's 1,000 better ways to do this. I understand, but for this one, we're just trying to make it work. And so this is how our proof of concept way is going to work. So you're going to do that lookup, and anytime I use with, I always do X because it's a very temporary variable only available inside the function. I guess I should do W's instead of X's, but whatever. That's a thought I just had. Okay. But that is going to do this lookup once, because what we want to be able to do is we're going to have two different behaviors depending on whether or not that variable is blank. And we're going to do this in a fancy way because I like fancy. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So hit Shift Enter to go to the next line. And so what do I want here? We're going to say, hey, we want to patch. What do we want? We want to patch Reddit points this time. Now here, remember up above, we did defaults Reddit task, and that's what went ahead and created a new record. But here we don't know if we want a new record or not. So you could do it with an if, or what we're going to do is we're going to use one of my favorite secret functions called coalesce. Coalesce returns the first non-blank value. So we're going to say, hey, coalesce. And remember, this portion of the formula just wants a record. It doesn't care how you get there. It doesn't care that we're using a function to get it. We're going to say, hey, coalesce X points. So if that lookup finds a record, so it finds a match, then that would have a copy of that record. This wants a record. It wouldn't be blank, so it would patch that record. If that record is blank, then it'll be, all right, I don't use that. What do I want you to use? I want you to use defaults Reddit points, like so. So then that way I don't have to write an if or multiple branches here. I'm just saying, hey, use the first one of these that isn't blank. So then what do we want to do? Now we're going to patch it. What are we patching? We are going to first patch the person's email. What's that going to be? It's going to be user email, right? Regardless, because user email will always be there, right? And then what else? We need to then take their points, right? So we're going to take their points, total points earned. Now, what is this one going to be? It is going to be X points dot total points earned, right? So if we found it and they already had 5 points, we need that 5 points here because we want to add to it. But if the X points is blank, then it'll just be 0. So take whatever you find there and then add to it what? You want to add to it drop down task dot selected dot task points. Close a curly, close that. We'll kind of pull this out of the way for a second. So that closes the patch. That closes the with. I put a semicolon there, not because it's needed, because I'm just used to doing that. So there you go. So that would patch the task, right? That's one step, right? Like this whole section up here, just that happens no matter what. Then we're going to say, hey, go find that stuff. And then if you find one, update it. If you didn't find one, then you create the new one. So it'll be there for the next time. So let's try this. I don't know. Feed the dog. It was hot. 8, 9, whatever, right? Submit the task. There we go. And so if we go and look in our data source, because that's probably the easiest thing to look and really feel good, right? So we'll say edit task. There's feed the dog. It just happened. It was hot. 8:29 task points, right? So our primary logging of the activity, the thing they did, has been captured. And remember, we have columns over here already like created by, so we know that Shane Young created it. I didn't have to patch or track that because Shane presses the button, Shane creates the thing. If Chewy comes in here later, presses the button, then it'll be created by Chewy. So people are always recording their own task, so we don't have to have a column for that or do anything manual. Like created by just works. It's the beauty of Dataverse or SharePoint. Okay, let's close that one. Let's check our points. So say edit data there. And so look, person email, Shane created on, right? That was automatically done. And then total points is 2. That does, okay? So now we want task, we want to track, right? How many times can I say track? Words. Okay, I'm better. So now what we want to do, let's just change this. We don't have to necessarily change it, but let's just change this to walk the dog. It was still hot, right? So that way we can just see that it's different. And let's just say that we did that yesterday, 8/8, okay? So, right, different points value. So what do we know? So when we hit submit task, 2 things should happen. There should be a second record in the task activity list, right? Because we're tracking each one of those individually. But our points one should just have one record still just for me, but now my total point should be 2 plus 3, which is 5. Okay, so let's see how I did. Once again, we'll just go here, edit data. There's our second line, right? Still hot, 883. That looks accurate. So we've logged the thing they did. Now, if we go to Reddit points and edit data, Shane only has one record and total points is 5. Yeah! Once again, without practicing, sometimes I'm a little nervous that my things are going to work, but they did. Now you have it, right? So what could you do? You could add a simple gallery if you just wanted to see, something like, hey, what are all the tasks that have been completed? I'm nervous. I keep checking to make sure recording's still running after messing up the first time, right? So we just change this to Reddit task, right? So then we could have a gallery that shows maybe all the recently done tasks. You could filter it by created by if you only want people to see their own. You could then give them a way to display them. Like, you can do whatever you want. I really don't care. And then the same type of thing, maybe over here for the points, right? Like if we do column, right, we could have a column chart. And if we kind of drag this over here a little bit, I totally messed this up by ferociously dragging. And then what we do, we would just say, hey, Mr. Chart, your items is what? That would be our Reddit points. And so right now, Shane's the only one with points. And then we could just go over here and say, hey, what we want to show in the series is total points earned. And so you can see that Shane is 5. But now if we take this app, and I'm not even going to go through it all, but if I shared it with Chewy and then Chewy did a task, the next time I came in here, like it would automatically show up, right? So you've got all the information, you're tracking all the things, you've gamified this app. Submitting the task was what you wanted. And so we're just capturing all those raw. And then here you're just writing the points. So you could just take whatever this concept is, right? This comes up a lot. This concept comes up in like inventory control, any type of scenario where you're trying to patch, dynamically update a specific column because you want to keep an update. And you could have, like, if you really wanted, you could get rid of this whole concept and you could have just taken what was here and you could do like groupings and roll-ups and that type of stuff. But like that is nice that it all becomes in one big table, but it is a little more challenging. Also, if you're thinking, all right, I want this app, right? Who wouldn't want this awesome app? So if you can sign up at training.powerapps91.com for my YouTube library or any of our paid subscriptions, you get access to download this and all my other apps that I build. Or if you're thinking, man, I really want to, Shane, build an app for me. You did this person's, do mine. This was kind of fun. If you liked it, I'm going to put a link down in the comments below, not in the comments, in the video description, where you can go out and fill out a form that I will build after I get done recording that will let you submit your idea, right? Like, needs to be a achievable app. I built this one. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but in less than 30 minutes, it was something that I felt was universally, made sense. Everyone wants to gamify stuff. So it gave us a chance to teach those concepts. So when you're submitting things, make sure that you're submitting things that have an application to everyone. If it's hyper specific just for you, probably not going to choose that. And of course, though, if you're like, hey, I do just want you to build my hyper specific app, then remember PowerApps 911, we have a team of like 30 consultants that will be happy to build that for you. Okay. Oh, that was a lot. That was interesting. Hopefully you liked this format of me just tackling a problem. We'll see. All right. But with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.